Hey, this is Misery Loves Company, a weekly social reading series hosted by miserytourism.com. Every Friday, we welcome outsider and transgressive writers to come and share their work. And this is a special one, guys, because as of today, April 1st, 2022, Misery Tourism has somehow existed for a fucking decade. This is
Damn.
yeah. Thank you, Carter. No, yeah, this is fucking our 10th anniversary here. Rudy and I started the website up. We launched it on April 1st, 2012, to be a little, basically just a place to host our weird outsider role-playing games. And we've definitely taken a weird path over the course of the last 10 years. And I don't think the site really took the form that it has now until relatively recently, until the last 3 or 4 years or whatever. But still, it's been a wild ride, and it's awesome that we're still fucking here somehow, still doing this. So anyway, I just wanted to say that at the top. Yeah, so we'll get into this. I don't think, wait, nope, it's not Blake. Blake is first up to read, but I don't think he's with us at the moment. Are you with us, Blake? No. If not, we'll start with Dan, because Dan, I know you needed to be out of here by 9, so you can start us off.
Okay, this is from the novel in progress Wanderer that's been in progress for a year, but this chapter is called The Swamp. I have no voice in my head or chest. It's just the things I remember when I look at a tree that shapes a certain way, or a dead snake on the side of the road. A phrase falls out of my mouth that I've never heard before. It sounds wise, but I don't think I came up with it or read it anywhere else. Something is talking through me, maybe. I know because if I say it to people, I watch them go white as ghosts while I speak. Their eyes go wide and their pupils dilate, just like I sprayed MDMA in their mouths. I'm still feeding the birds when I can. 2 ravens follow me around the island because I fed them once in town. My feet are bloody, but they don't seem to care. I imagine it may look weird to see a man on the road having a lively argument with a conspiracy of ravens with this place's reputation for bringing the ghosts out of people in ways they are numb to. The now and the past on earth, alas, my friends, that is what I find most unendurable. And I should not know how to live if I were not also a seer of that what must come. A seer, a willer, a creator, a future himself, and a bridge to the future. And alas, also, as it were, a cripple at this bridge. Just Google it, I said, staring down 30 feet of water. When the world floods, I'll be the happiest drowning. My malaise was justified. We're all doomed, and I was the smartest one, the one who sat in Andrew Marvell's garden. Just take your laurels and shove them up your ass. Do you know they make weed suppositories now? I said, staring down 25 feet at the water. All the money I wasted on cigarettes and weed and Coca-Cola, I should have been saving up to go buy a boat, I said, staring down 22 feet at the water. As the water came up, I started wishing I made more friends, wishing I got laid more, wishing I would spend more time in forests barefoot. I saw the water rise in dreams, sleeping on an air mattress in the middle of the ocean. Dehydrated and sunburned, I did nothing. I whispered it when I should have been yelling at Twitter. Soothsayer signal boost, I said, staring down 15 feet at the water. I imagined the world on their mechanical keyboards, click-clacking out prayers and last-minute declarations of love. Even with wet feet, there would still be deniers. Eventually, all bridges won't be bridges anymore. They will have no one to walk across them, no one to jump from them. Instead, fish will use their water shadows to hide from bigger fish. The bridges of the world will be reefs. There's no good place to write a last goodbye, chisel it into concrete, and eventually it will disappear. Water erodes everything. Water washes. Water will make clean. I took my boots off below a pair of ravens sitting at a stop sign. They kept chattering until I spoke. You think I need these still? I said, pointing at my boots. Croak. Will they still be here when I get back? Croak. Okay. I thought carefully about my next question. Croak. Will you shut the fuck up for a second? I need to be careful here. Croak, croak. Yeah, you're right. I left my boots behind in the weird driftwood trinket I picked up from somewhere and continued walking down the path. It was strange to be here by myself, but I had tossed my phone. Without the outside influence of people and the technology I carefully left behind, what good was I? The The wind picked up from behind me, and I felt like my spirit was re-entering my body. It was all the guidance I needed to step barefoot over sharp stones and across rotting logs nestled in the back 40 of other people's private property. Somewhere hidden behind the brambles and tall grass of the swamp, I heard a buzz. The swamp had thorny vines coating every direction. More thorns seemed to be in the straight direction to the low hum of something. I took the path spiraling towards the hum until I found myself in front of the doorway to the small trapper's hut, and the doorway was guarded by a thick coating of bramble thorns. Fuck's sakes. I started pushing through the brambles, but every gentle push against the vine was met with a thorn cutting up my back. Fucking garbage plants, I swear. I pushed through the brambles and it was faster and less painful than trying to negotiate with them. I heard the ravens croak in the distance. Laugh it up, you motherfuckers. Another sharp vine opened a narrow wound in my chest and I groaned. I had to pry the blue painted door from the front of the cabin. Above the door was a hydroelectric smart meter, and where the buzz was coming from, it was in a constant state of flashing reset P18888. Inside the cabin was dark. The light didn't work and it had a small reservoir of water. I turned it on and it emptied out the back of the cabin. I heard a beehive buzzing somewhere. What is this, like some kind of escape room? I grabbed the broom and started sweeping. Under the dirt and dust and shit were petrified animal skeletons, a small cat and a medium-sized dog. I picked them up and threw them into the swamp. I played with the circuit breaker trying to get the light to go on. Behind the water pump were 3 floodlights, one blue, one green, and one red. I tried swapping the lights and playing with the breaker, but instead I tossed them in different directions. The buzzing from the beehive started up. Would you shut the fuck up? I'm trying to focus here. The buzzing got louder, so I took the broom and smashed the pointy end through the siding of the hut. Dickhead. I had a bit of fear in my head thinking I would get swarmed by bees, but they just quieted. I looked around at the small hut and thought about if it was a puzzle or just some bullshit. I was getting bored of puzzles, so I left the broom for whatever witch was responsible for the place and went back out of the swamp to get my boots. The ravens were still just in the trees in front of someone's home. Croak. No, it was just some old broken shit. Croak. Couldn't see the reeds because you fuckers wouldn't help. Croak. One of the ravens left. The second hopped back and forth like it was trying to see if the coast was clear, then spoke. How's grandma? A weird tingling coated my skin to the point where I had no choice but to surrender to the idea that the raven spoke to me. Don't be too dog-like, you know? Don't bark or chase the birds. They really don't like that. You have to be still and they'll land on you. Why the fuck is this happening? No clue. Last thing I remembered, I was sad and fucked up and I wrapped a rope around my neck, and next thing I knew, I was a raven. Well, grandma misses you a lot. She keeps saying that she knows she'll see you again. I keep trying to visit, but there's a lot of dogs there and the crows are working overtime to keep things civil. I had to fly up really high to see her, but then this eagle got pissed off I was near her nest. Right. Bird politics is tiring. Yeah. I heard a story once. Well, overheard. This grandma was consoling her grandson, but it was about this wolf who becomes a raven and goes back to his family to try and help them hunt. You have. I've been trying. I miss you too. Everyone misses you. Your sister especially. Yeah, I know I can't tell her I'm here, but can you? I thought about looking insane telling my family I wandered into an incarnation of my past cousin, but it seemed like they already knew who I am, so there's no use trying to hide anymore. I will, but in person. Thanks, man. Do you know where I can get some water? I saw a dog bowl in that person's yard. It looked fairly clean, but I didn't drink out of it. That's all right, I can wait. You look pretty burned. You should probably get some water soon. Thanks. See ya. I thought about what I had just said, wishing somehow Emma heard me. I said it to her many times, but she never believed me. I had tried so many times to show her I loved her, but it never seemed good enough. Maybe if she knew I loved the birds like she did and fed the birds like she did, she might believe me. That's it.
Dan, the first section of this, the section about the water rising section, did you read a variation of that at a previous? I thought so.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I like the way that you've incorporated it into this larger piece, because it was phenomenal as a standalone thing, but I really like how you use it as kind of a segue into this larger piece and as a kind of like a little bit of psychological stage setting here. And I mean, as usual, like you, you're really good at capturing like states of psychological distress, right? And one thing I love especially about that first part is the way that it like switches back and forth between like really profound and really banal shit, right? Like you'll have one thought that's like that has like overwhelming like power, and then you'll switch to something that's like a throwaway kind of like, you know, kind of crass transient sort of thought. And I don't know, I really dig the way that you constructed that, and it's the perfect like launching off point, I think, for the rest of the story.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing. And this is all part of the novel that you read a bit from last week?
No, that was a different novel in progress.
Okay.
That was like sci-fi more.
That was like a proto cyberpunk kind of pre.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. So this is a new work that you're starting on then.
Well, this is part of the Wanderer, which I started last summer and reading in here. But I've like found, I'm trying to like cobble it together, but it's like a homunculus.
Oh, here we go. Speaking of homunculi, huh? Okay, all right. I thought I was setting some questionable people in some names I didn't know. All right. The rest of you I let in, please. Like, behave yourself if you can. Also, so I've got 3 people in the waiting room. Unless somebody says, "Hey, my friend is in the waiting room," let them in. I'm not letting anyone else in.
Wait, what are their names?
Nothing great. Carl, Davon, Jonah 678898, and Juan Dablo. Yeah. Oh, Juan's gone. Oh, they're dropping. Anyway, if anyone has a friend in the waiting room, just put it in the chat and we'll let them in. Anyway, that was fantastic, Dan. Thanks for sharing. Blick, is Blick here? Has Blick made it yet? If not, we'll move on. Let's see. So Derek's up next. Derek, are you ready to read, or are you still
I think I can read. How is my sound?
Sounds great.
Sound good.
Okay. I think I have a window here. I'm reading from the first thing that I ever published at Misery Tourism. And I was such an idiot then. I wanted to read it, one of these things really bad, but I thought it was for the people only like that published that week or whatever. I was very confused. So
I remember that. I remember getting an email from you about that and being like, "Oh no, what? No, you can read whenever. Like,
Yeah.
you can read whenever, whatever."
the I remember like right after I got this accepted, you guys did like a theme thing. And I was like, I want to read again, but I've got to get accepted there. Like, because I didn't realize yet, like whatever. And and that's when I think Rudy did the stepfather theme or something. Or no, maybe it was King and I did another. But anyway, yeah. So this is the first thing I read. And I have not read it aloud since then. I have no idea how it's going to work for that. William might have put a link in there. I'm going to read straight from characters. It ends up a chapter in characters. So there are probably a couple of changes, although not many. It is annoyingly the only thing that I think I've ever written that probably does read better to actually look at it, because it's all bullet pointed. So if you're not looking at it, there's a bunch of bullet points. This is called The Third and Final Night. A young woman was taken away this morning in a stretcher by ambulance. She looked to be in her late teens. She was staying with another young woman who dressed and smoked and looked just like her in the room next to mine. They checked in a few days before me. Quiet neighbors. I never had cause for concern. How someone smokes is something I pay special attention to. The first time I saw these 2 young women, they were smoking outside their room, as was I. We exchanged mumbled greetings and polite nods. Each of them preferred to rest their cigarettes on their lips for seconds longer than most. letting the smoke coming in and out form clouds around their faces. They also let ash build up and fall naturally. I prefer to flick at the filter, and the sight of excessive ash sickens me. It was fully light outside when paramedics left. I went back into my room and slept decently for several more hours. I woke up starving. There is a vending machine here behind the clerk's desk. The night clerk makes you hand her your crumbled dollar bills and announce what you'll have. She vends your items for you. Some of the guests might consider this a gesture of service. I do not like someone to know what I'm having to eat. I prefer the day clerk. The day clerk hardly wakes up from her chair. She lets you go behind the desk and vend your own items. I get 2 packages of honey buns and a moon pie chocolate. I drink coffee. I call mom. Please just tell me where you're at, honey. No. We're really very close to calling the police and letting them sort this out. The police don't care. I'm 20 years old. Police don't consider a 20-year-old to be a missing person. Before you left, you were waving that silly pocket knife in Craig's face. We could report you armed and dangerous. Tell your husband he's a bitch. Craig is her husband. I laughed and hung up on her. I watched Law and Order SVU until it was dark out. Finally, it was dark out. The first one walked by wearing clear heels. I didn't bother to look at the rest of her plumage. The clear heels were tacky. The second one, then the third one, then the next one, I stopped counting and they all looked the same, poorly lit and bored acting. I went inside and into the sink so I could gather my senses. I like standing up, and I look at myself in the mirror and I look like James Dean not caring at all. I also like what happens to my after it leaves me. I'm not supposed to like these things. I am supposed to learn a trade. I am supposed to like drinking beer and fishing or golf or college football or 1,000 other things that aren't just standing in front of a mirror in a motel room pretending I have $50. I want to spend it. The phone rings. It's Craig. Your mother is scared. She's out of her mind over here. You got to knock it off. Moms always get boyfriends named Craig or Eddie who suppose they're tough just because they're dumb enough to work all fucking day. They want to teach their girlfriends' grown-ass kids a lesson or two about REALITY and who's going to pay the light bill, smartass. They think they're teaching the world a lesson, but it's the other way around. The lesson is get fucked. Bye. I hang up. I start in on the thing, chewing my fingers right around the nails until they bleed. I store all the flaky white pieces of skin, chewed and wet, in my mouth until my mouth is filled with my skin and all of my fingers are blood fingers. The banging on the door and the threats of force, they're getting louder. I remember so clearly being in a car accident when I was 4 or 5, but my mom swears this never happened and no one can remember that far back besides. So I have to accept this phantom memory, but not knowing something isn't real has never dulled the edges for me. I'm in the back seat. A man is driving. The car is white. Wheel of Fortune, Sally Ride, heavy metal, suicide. The next thing is metal piercing my little kid's skin and the man's groaning from the front seat. He turns to look at me. His face is contorted and mean, and he reaches his long arms, those huge roving paws, and tries to get at me, but I'm quick.
Derek, this sucks. I'll be back later.
Later, man. I'm real quick. A young man was taken away this evening in a stretcher by ambulance. They're monitoring the situation. You can almost see his bones. He bit so much skin off his fingers. He wished he wasn't born here, or he wished he wasn't born to these people. And he wonders if he could roam the town and find new people, his people. He could start with the other motels, then the diners and all-night restaurants, the music clubs. There must still be music clubs. If there's nothing to this town, then he could scour the entire countryside. Surely his people are out there, staying awake at night, emptying themselves out here in America. He would stop biting so hard. He would stop biting altogether. He would stop biting himself if they would just drop him off any place else but here. They won't. He won't. His mom is waiting outside the hospital room. Craig has that ancient white Buick, dents and all, double parked by the entrance, gassed up and running, waiting them to get their asses in. He's got to work in the morning. Somebody has to. The hell of it isn't that there's one go round, then we're all shut down for good. It's that we don't pick where we start.
Derek, a couple of things. First of all, sometimes the trolls will behave in this oddly serendipitous way. Like they understand, like they pick their moment very well. And I love that troll dropped in, and especially with the noise that he did at that moment in the story, like at the moment of like greatest agony and tension and fear in the story. It was almost like one of those sound effect boards that they have at the like tacky radio stations that the DJs use or whatever.
I mean, it was, that was my Chris Rock moment. And I handled it with the same level of grace. You know what I mean? Like you just keep going, you know, you can sue him later.
The second thing is, Derek, I'm glad you chose to read this piece tonight, right? Because this is what wonderful fucking timing, right? We're celebrating like 10 years of Misery Tourism. And here's a piece, not only is it the first piece that you read on Misery Loves Company, but it's going to be a part of your novel now. And that really, like, there's a sense of like completeness or coming full circle or whatever fucking cliche you want to use about that, right? The sense of like the meaningfulness of, it's a reminder of like the meaningfulness of what we're doing here, right? Like it's more than just people come and read their shit. Like it's a step along a process towards something bigger. And you know, now this piece is part of something bigger. So that's fucking tremendous.
Yeah. And
I can't wait until Characters fucking drops here. Do you have a date? Can you announce a date?
I don't know. I think Manny is the last like real actual punk rock publisher. Like, do you know what I mean? I don't anticipate that I would ever know before him anything about it. You know what I mean? But I feel exactly
like a party at a dive bar in Staten Island or something to get a copy of this. Am I?
I definitely want to go back up and be New York Literary Star again and do the entire joke of that. Thanks so much, Merriman.
Well, thank you, Derek. It's awesome. I have to look at my list and hope I don't have to reload it here. Keith is up next.
Okay. How's the sound on this, William?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Okay. Thank you. So tonight I'll be reading the next sections in my story, Living and Dying in the Now and Then, the surreal life of an aspiring writer. And tonight, the sometimes reliable, but mostly unreliable narrator will continue his story. He thinks that there's a point in everyone's life when we become aware that dying is a part of living, and many of our memories of death begin in our childhoods and youth. And over time, we build up so many memories that the ones that remain as poignant ones are those of the passing of our family and our closest friends. And then oftentimes the manner of death stays in our memory because usually it's one of the first experiences of a death in a new way. Like the first time he smelled the burning flesh of a classmate who he didn't really know very well. And the accident was on the road right outside the end of the school hallways where the smokers would go between classes. And it was just a few yards from the wreck. And he will never forget walking into school that morning. And though he could not see the burned out car from the school's front entrance, and at that point he didn't even know about the accident, but he knew that something was not right because the odors that were languishing in the heavy morning air were unfamiliar smells that he would never forget. And then he remembers the time when his classmate fell to his death from a mountain overlook on a family weekend visit to the mountains to see the beautiful leaves changing colors. And then the other classmate that was electrocuted within the first month after graduation after starting a job with a power company. And the suicide of an older upperclassman that had just started college and was really smart and planning to go to medical school. And the stories go on and on and on. And in his young life, he realized 4 years too late that he should have taken his senior year high school yearbook with him when he left for college, but he left it at home. And his mama, with whom they share many traits, was a very detailed person about many things. And since his mama worked as a librarian in the town's only junior high school, she knew almost everyone in town that came through that school. And then in his senior yearbook, she kept a running obituary list of the date and cause of death of everyone who died. And she penciled those notes beside their picture in the yearbook. And he did not even know some of the deceased. And there were 4 grades of students in that yearbook. And his graduating class alone had hundreds of graduates. And his mama probably knew all of the deceased ones in the school. And there were more deaths than he ever wanted to see, even after only 4 short years after graduation. And now, as he writes this, he is so thankful that when he finished college, that at his mama's insistence, that he take his yearbook with him when he was moving out of state to his first job. And thank the Lord that his mama was minimalizing her home that summer, decades before minimalism was a lifestyle. And he got to take that yearbook, which to this day he still has and keeps hidden in a bedroom closet. And then he moved far away from his hometown news. And since in those days, long distance calls cost a small fortune, and he only came home to see his family and old friends a couple of times a year, that although he knew that his mama would update him on the new deaths of everyone that she knew that he knew, he thinks today that because he had left the nest and his yearbook was gone from her hands, that one behavior of his mama may have changed. And he was so glad that she didn't have that yearbook anymore. And at this point in his story, he's starting to think that maybe he has an obsession with death that is not normal. And he knows that he has 2 more death stories to tell. And one is about his great-grandmother dying from the Hong Kong flu. And the other is about his friend's oxy addiction and suicide. And that is all that remains in his current outline. But he will stay flexible and move on for now. And he promises to try his best not to tell more than those 2 stories about death. And now he's starting to feel really sad, and he needs to take a break from writing and think about some happier times of his life. So as he's heating up his chili for lunch, there's a whiteboard on his refrigerator. And on it, he jots down a few more ideas for his big story. And then after he eats and while washing his dishes, he thinks about the very complimentary message that he received the day after his first public reading of a piece of his big story. And he really appreciated it. And the message in the email that his lit friend had sent him, parenthetical, and by the way, from this point on, anytime he tells anything that relates to his outsider lit friends, just know that technically they should be identified as outsider lit friends, but since the only writer friends that he really has are in the outsider lit community, he'll just call them lit friends. And if he's writing about other writers, like say Henry Miller or Marjorie Conan Rawlings or J.D. Salinger, well, you get the idea. He'll just name them specifically. So where was he? Okay. His lit friend was sharing their story writing process in the email. And to be brief about it, there were 3 points that the friend made about what they do as a prerequisite to writing a story. And the 3 points were to come up with a working title and a beginning and an ending. And well, obviously, since it's too late to do these as prerequisites, he thinks about the points, and those are really good ideas. But then he rationalizes that in his case, maybe it was a good thing that he didn't follow that path, because very early on, he realized that this was going to be a virginal experience. And he wanted to capture that process and the feelings of the act of writing as a virgin. And although he had no earthly idea that it was going to last this long or go this deep, he wanted to keep everything as pure as possible for as long as possible as he ventured into the story. And now that he has completely entered into this new world, he looks back and realizes that he has figured out the ending. And by accident, he started the beginning with his short prose piece. And so the title is what is left from his friend's writing process ideas. And yesterday, he spent a few hours playing around with titles, and it really made him think about his story. And he came up with 2 working titles, but he's not quite ready to publicly commit to one just yet. And then he thought about his friend's disclaimer about his 3 writing revelations. And the disclaimer was that he said that oftentimes all 3 will change by draft's end. And now he feels pretty good about trying that advice in the future. And it might make things go a little easier and smoother the next time. But right now, he's in the middle of the act, and he's still learning and getting more experience as he goes, and he's no longer a virgin. At least that's what he would like to think. He's going to take another really big risk now with his experimental story. With all of this virginity stuff that's running around in his head, he has a very poignant and very personal short poem to share. Because it is so personal, some may find it embarrassing to read, but he's just going to take this risk, if only for a change of pace and to share a different side of himself. Warning, this poem is really terrible and wrong in so many ways, and he promises not to ever do this again in his big story. So please be tolerant and give him a second chance if he needs one, because this big story is just in the first draft stage, and he thinks that in story writing there may be several drafts before a story is declared finished, and this segment may not even make the cut. So here's the poem, and he even gave it a title. How did we ever grow up? When I was barely 13, I lost my virginity to a pillow on the bathroom floor in our garage apartment. It was a messy experience. I bragged to my older friend that I'd lost my virginity. He was the one who told me that the bathroom was the best place. I asked him if his was a messy experience, and he said no, that he lost his virginity in the shower. I asked him, but what about your pillow? And to this day, I have never forgotten the look on his face. He never was good at telling jokes, but he is better at telling stories. But the trouble was that sometimes his stories were so hard to figure out that most people didn't know whether to laugh or cry or just give him a hug. But he always did get a lot of hugs, and he thought that the hugs were for love, until one day when he and John Henry were alone in the dorm room, and John Henry explained things to him about what the hugs meant. And he knew right then and there that he had a real friend who cared about him. And then, out of nowhere, John Henry asked him if Grasshopper wanted to go to the TV room and watch Kung Fu and learn some life lessons. And then later, he would take Grasshopper out to the 40-watt club and teach him some lessons about scoring with the girls. And all of this happened just a week or two before he met his new hot girlfriend, Mona, in the summer of 1970-something, when he was living on the dark side of the moon and dreaming of afternoon delights. That's it.
Keith, that was spectacular. Keith, only you could make fucking a pillow sound wholesome. But this is tremendous. This is tremendous.
That was the narrator. That's the narrator that did that.
Keith, though, I love what you've done here, because the two halves here come together in a really powerful way. The first half of what you read was so tragic and so sad and like so very true to like the weirdly morbid experience of like coming of age and learning that people are just going to die, and it's not always going to be your grandmother or your great aunt, in the hospital, that young people are going to die, and you captured that like the disorienting horror of coming of age so like effectively in that first half. And then, and then the second half was, and I love how honestly you like foregrounded and announced the fact that no, like this is too much. I need to shift gears, right? And then the second half was so charming and so funny and so effective. These just kick ass, Keith. You need to. I'm glad we're recording these for posterity, excuse me, because as Derek said, you need to do like an audio book of these. Listening to you read these is just like such a wonderful experience. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, William. Thanks, everyone.
Sorry, I just remembered the shower line, and now I have to center myself. Okay. Thank you so much, Keith. That was fantastic.
Well, thanks. I'll have to read the chat now.
Carter is up next.
What up? Keith, that was great. I really, really liked that. And Derek, I loved your thing too. I mean, everything's been good so far. I'm actually really pissed I have to follow all of that. It's like making Machine Gun Kelly cover System of a Down. That's just a little topical humor for you guys today.
Machine Gun Kelly. Oh no.
Will posted the link. This story is called My Brother, His Mummy, and Me, and everything in it is true. My brother starts high school in the fall. He'd gone to church camp at the dunes for the summer, which is how it happened. No one noticed on the ride back to Indy because he'd rolled it up in his tent. He claims he exhumed it himself. He found it buried underneath the dunes. We thought it was a Halloween decoration until we noticed the smell. Mom used to love Halloween. It's the dog's birthday, and it was also Dad's birthday. Our couch is plaid and uncomfortable. Mom keeps a nasty white blanket on it, which used to be for the dog hair. The dog is comfy on the carpet these days, now that the couch is taken. In the mornings, Mom changes the sheets and she throws the dirty ones in the wash, but nothing gets embalming fluid out. While she lays the creature gingerly back on the cushions and feeds the dog breakfast, I take one hit of weed in the shower since the steam hides the smell. It's pretty easy to smoke in my bedroom too, though. I burn incense and pretend that I'm meditating. Mom hardly notices now that she's so busy. It's probably the best thing about not sharing a room with my brother anymore, the weed smoking thing. Last month, they took down his bunk and moved it to Dad's old office. Sometimes at night, I turn over and wish I could kick at his mattress above me and ask what he's thinking about. We used to talk about things. The mummy looks fresh out the sarcophagus. It doesn't eat or talk or move, but I see it readjust itself on the couch sometimes, or it'll twitch when Mom moves it to change the sheets and throw them in the wash and stuff. Sometimes it makes a noise. I've thought about posting about this online, but my brother says we should just keep it to ourselves. Mom agrees. I only spilled the beans once. It was the second to last day of 10th grade about a month ago now. The guy thought I'd hit on his girlfriend, so he pulled me to the ground and kicked me in the neck and called me a faggot. I told him my mummy would suck the fucking life out of him, and he laughed. He kicked me again. He thought I was joking. And then last night, Thoth, the Lord of Wisdom, came to me in a dream. He arose on a horizon of reeds, a great godly form with the head of an ibis. Green locks spilled down his shoulders, and in his hands he held a long scarlet rod. When I beheld him, I shrank with fear. He led me through the desert to a throne hewn from a single black stone, and on the throne was seated a man with the head of a jackal and the body of my dad. Bulbous, copper, beer belly, swollen with frogs, flies, locusts, eyes that ripped through my skull like a great river, He raised his hand, and the air filled with rot. He opened his mouth to speak, but at the first croak of his voice, I woke up covered in sweat. I did hit on that guy's girlfriend, to be fair. This evening, Mom's working late, and we can't find the cat. Mummies don't like cats, my brother says. That's why the cat ran away. We should look for it. I gesture at the keys to Dad's truck. It'll just run off again. Mom loves that cat. Since when the fuck do you care about Mom? His tone is nasty and desperate. It's like he thinks I'm betraying him by always being older than him. He doesn't know what it's like going through life like I do, always high and afraid. Not like him. He's the bravest 13-year-old in the world. He's brave enough for high school, brave enough to use the word fuck, brave enough to resurrect our dead father, brave enough to kick my ass. I glance at the couch, that greasy, brown, pressed-in monster. When Dad died, it was because of a heart attack brought on by heat stroke. I storm off to the bathroom and take a hit from the bowl in the trash can under the sink. Then I stomp out past the mummy and my brother towards the garage. Well, don't go alone, he says. I don't want to. We're brothers. Yeah. So we drive for a while. Sunset sits heavy on the fields. Lightning bugs dust off their bulbs between corn stalks. We don't find the cat anywhere. Later, we tell Mom it must have been sick. It must have took itself somewhere to die because it loved her and didn't want her to witness its end. I tell Mom something I read about Bastet, the Egyptian god of cats and good health. Mom goes to her room. I go to my room. My brother goes to his room. Before breakfast, Mom moves the creature to the carpet, cleans mummy juice and cicada shells off the couch, changes the sheets while the dog watches. August comes. My brother starts high school. Slowly, he learns what they say about me and what they do to me, and I hear about things that they say about him too. We're both on the swim team. Sometimes after practice, we talk about things. Apparently, Dad once told my brother that if he died, he wanted to be buried in the dunes right by Lake Michigan so that he could keep fishing. There's a tornado watch. The living room strobes with sky lightning, splattering the mummy's shadow across the walls. I watch the slime ooze from its desiccated legs, staining the plaid of the couch. I don't know why it's here or what it wants, but I think it'll help us, Mom and my brother and me. It'll suck the fucking life out of anyone who'd hurt us. I sit by its side next to the couch with the dog and I talk to my brother. I don't know if we'll be okay. I don't know if anyone ever really will be okay, but I tell him I've heard that death is only the beginning. That's it.
Carter, obviously I love this piece because we published this piece. But what I really, really dig about this piece is this is a piece about grief and loss, where all the big emotions are backgrounded, where you can see these kids struggling, but in a really understated way. And like all the wild supernatural shit that happens in the foreground is like shadow puppet shit, right? It's like what you're seeing on the wall. It's not what's going on in the minds of these poor kids. And the way that those like surreal shadow puppets communicate the real emotional experience of losing a loved one, especially as a child, and rationalizing the guilt and loss and confusion of that. It's really fucking good, Carter. I really dig it.
Oh, thanks so much. I really appreciate that. I'm really happy it's here, Misery Tourism, on our 10th
Yeah,
anniversary.
I'm happy we got the opportunity to publish it.
Yeah, I mentioned it in the chat, but this has an energy that I really, really like. And basically, like I said, this is the best Calvin and Hobbes Lovecraft crossover that I've ever that I never got that I always wanted. So very, very awesome. But yeah, I love how it's like poignant and also very but it takes that and it, like William said, backgrounds it for these other emotions that are very real in, the situation, like that is, like all these things about grief and all these things compounding on top of other things in a grief situation, and it foregrounds the stuff that you wouldn't expect. It's really, really wild.
Thanks. That's awesome. I'm glad you guys like it.
Yeah, thank you, Carter. So up next, we've got a change of plans. Gigi is in fact, he's informed me, lucid enough to read the poems that he said he was going to read and then canceled out of at the beginning. So Gigi, the floor is yours.
Okay. So these are due to be published by DFL on Monday, on the 4th, I think. They're quick. I'll be out of your hair soon here. All right. This first one's called Drug Commercial. Do you look at your shoes? Do you think faggot and these are faggot shoes? Then mumble that out loud when you tie them up, when you're walking, when you look down at those shoes. Do you wander around your room before you leave? Take drugs, the fast ones like cocaine. Adderall, Concerta, Vyvanse, Ritalin, cocaine. You'll feel excited to walk in your shoes. This next one's called The Grocery Store is on Fire. The people seem quiet, polite, miserable, but ready to help. Altogether too nervous, shy, worried about problems, the problem, smiling back under a mask. They quickly join in. This one's called World War I planes. People had to be shouted at back on the ground. Throw your bomb this way, you idiot, because otherwise the bomb might catch an air draft, hit the tail, and ruin the mission. This is the last one. It's called My Son's Third Birthday. I grab an ankle and swing his body like an axe through the cake into the stripper. That's all I got.
So I think you've read versions of 3 of these before, and I'm so glad that you found a home for them, especially the faggot shoes one, as it's one of my all-time favorites of yours. But I don't think that you read The Grocery Store is on Fire here before. I could be wrong, but oh my God, I love that one. The too nervous, shy, worried about problems, like the anxiety of, I don't know, as someone who has like a tremendous amount of social anxiety and a tremendous amount of anxiety about doing dumb fucking day-to-day things, like going to the grocery store, going to the pharmacy, like you perfectly capture that feeling of just like, I don't know why, but I'm scared as shit every time I'm in the grocery store. I'm like apologizing to people, like I move my cart too close to someone. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. And I've had people be like, oh, like shocked that I would apologize because I got too close to them. Oh no, that's no problem. Like, but you can tell they're a little wigged out by like how
flustered you are. Yeah, you're just like
not punched over some like totally invisible fight, right? So you like get in that poem, you like get that like real underlying like irrational tension that's below the surface on all this day-to-day shit, and I dig that, Gigi.
I guess, but also that was partly inspired by the fact that in December the grocery store closest to me was on fire. So yeah, there's that. Yeah, thanks for letting me read. Thanks for being nice too, William. Love you, buddy.
Damn.
Thank you, Gigi. Sorry.
Wait, how was it on fire?
Actually, yeah, I want to know this, Gigi.
Yeah, like what?
I know that you were not 100% tonight, but I do need to hear what happened.
Google Marshall Fire.
Okay.
There was a huge fire. Like outside my window right now, I can see burned out foundations of houses. Like they still haven't cleaned this shit up.
Wow.
It's like
really?
It was the biggest fire in like Colorado history. It was so big. Yeah, like it's fucking massive.
Holy shit. Holy shit.
That's what happens when people don't buy your book.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wait, are you suggesting that that it was an act of arson?
No, it's an act of God because he
What
wants
was it?
people to buy my book.
God is punishing those who don't buy Gigi Rowland's book.
Fair enough, as he should. Anyway, thank you, Gigi. Thank you so much. Brandon's up next.
All right. So I had an idea yesterday, figured I would write this up, and it actually came together fairly well. I do not wish to raid today. I would much rather remain here in my bed of straw and linen, wrapped in elk furs until the haze of morning leaves these lands. I can tell there's a chill coming in from the sea. My brothers and cousins insist that I join them, as I have done for years now, and as our fathers and theirs have done. They say that it is our tradition to be warriors at the very front line of our armies, to raid and to conquer in the name of our ancestors. I've come to think that's simply too much pressure to be under. Why should it always fall upon us to do the heavy lifting? We've done enough for long enough. Let someone else have their turn. The wise man on the edge of town insists that I am afflicted by a landwight trying to wear me down, and that to not raid is to give in and surrender my hopes of reaching Valhalla. I insist that I have spent the last 10 years raiding, and I am tired. My body aches, yes, from broken bones splintered at our camps between battles that never healed properly, from wounds that I can still feel on a cold day, and nothing is colder than being out on those seas in the rain this time of year. I want to sleep. I want to stay at home and simply breathe. Valhalla can wait. My bed is the only thing that calls to me now. The thought of going into battle again when I can still feel the last in my bones stirs my heart to beat rapidly and raises a tightness within my breast that is uncomfortable. The Sather woman in the woods insists that I am cursed of the blood, that if I do not go out upon the raid and anoint myself with the blood of my enemies, I will be lost to the depths of the sea. I insist that I have no urge to be around people anymore, that I wish to stay at home in my bed. I have no desire to shed the blood of our enemies, let alone anoint myself with it. It seems to me that if you want to speak of cursed blood, that would be the best way to cause it, not to treat it. And every time I think about shouting shield wall with my army, it just feels as though the walls are closing in around me. Jarl Halden insists that I will be much happier on the raid, pursuing glory with my kinsmen. I insist that my kinsmen are assholes, and I have seen enough of the things they do during raids. On our last journey to England, I witnessed Bjorn force himself upon a sheep while shouting, "Look at me, I'm a Welshman." He was drunk at the time, but this was shamefully unforgivable. We're meant to be warriors in search of glory, not fools buggering sheep. When we were instructed to bring home the pretty ones by Halden's nephew, Ganvir spent far too much time considering the children, so I killed him. His brothers were less than pleased. I have no desire to see what farm animals will be buggered this time around, and which of my neighbors are perverted filth that need to be dealt with. I have lost enough respect for my fellow villagers already. My wife, Hildy, insists that I will be able to improve our lives if I go on raid, returning with silver and treasures and honor. I insist that if she hadn't laid with Rognir while I was in England, I would be less reluctant to leave. She says that she watched my hound become morose and fall ill and die while I was gone and thought it a sign from the gods that I too had died. I say that my hound was more than 10 winters old and had a leg gone lame from driving a bear off from our property, and had already lived longer than I had ever dreamed. Jarl Halden was less than pleased when I made the square and killed Rognir in single combat in compensation for his part. I was less than pleased that my hound had died, and he was a good companion. No, I do not wish to raid today. I do not wish to leave my bed of furs in peace and quiet. I do not wish to fight. I do not wish to pursue glory. I do not fear landwights upon my soul or curses upon my blood. I do not wish to stand shoulder to shoulder with my kinsmen. I certainly do not wish to think of whom Hildy will lie with next. I do wish my hound were here with me. He always understood.
So a couple things. First of all, I really dig this. I really dig this because it does something that you've been doing in a lot of your more recent pieces, which is taking the like expectations of like epic pieces, whether it's epic fantasy pieces or like historical epics, and turning those expectations totally on their heads, right? Like this is a guy, this is a Viking who's just too fucking sad to go out there and chop off some heads. And I I have a lot of respect for that dude. But no, I really like the way that you give this guy like real authentic feeling pathos too. Like you can and you never like break the narrative spell or make it too obviously modern. This is a guy who is very much a function of his time, but still going through mundane day-to-day shit and still has let it get the better of him, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is this like how you feel when Rudy's like, hey, want to play League of Legends? And you're like, nah, I just got home from a long day of work. This is powerful, like, oh God, I don't want to play League of Legends today. And
Obey, yeah.
Rip.
But no, this is a fantastic piece, man.
Awesome, thank you.
I
Yeah,
really
this
like the aura in this piece. Sorry to budge in there. I know you usually go next, but I didn't want to lose my train of thought. Like the repetition of I do not wish to go to raid today, and having I do not wish as repetition, it really works. It's like it is very much poetry, and like old Germanic poetry too uses that very well and use it very well. So it was great it was great hearing you read that. Thanks, Brendan.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, main impetus, like I was explaining to Rudy, I had this idea float through my head of millennial Viking.
A wonderful idea. I really, like Dan said, like the way you repeat that thought, like an intrusive thought kind of, and also just the idea like someone who's too depressed to go to Valhalla, too depressed to die in battle. It's like the opposite of what we usually, see, like, soldiers and stuff like that come back, they're all fucked up, it's like, it's somebody who's too depressed for eternity. Like, I mean, it's just a wonderful idea.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I really liked it. I really like that style of like genre fiction that's really just about like some guy, it's not really about any sort of epic 3-act plot or anything. It's just about what it's like to live like in that kind of world. And also as like a mentally ill person of Nordic ancestry, I think all the time about what kinds of shit I would come up to not go raiding, if I had like lived like when way back in the day. So I don't know, it was like that was really good. I really liked it. I'd probably have been like, no, I'm like a bard,
Do you think Nordic people suffering from mental illnesses are just living with our ancestors' sins, and that we get to have seasonal depression disorder more often than not?
Yeah, that's probably it. It's like they went to Valhalla, so now I can't.
Oh man, that's so good.
Anyway, thank you, Brandon. That was a great piece. And up next is Gabe.
Hey everyone, I'm gonna read someone else's work tonight. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the American post-punk group, the Gun Club, but they're one of my favorite bands. And the singer, yesterday was the anniversary of his death in '96, Jeffrey Lee Pierce. But he's one of those guys who, yeah, his songs are like his songs are really poetic and very yeah, he assumes these different characters, almost like method acting, where he's almost like, yeah, his style is like if Baudelaire was like a Vietnam vet and then came back home and had to be like a gigolo and then started a band or something. That's kind of his vibe. So I'm gonna read four of his song lyrics, poems. First one's called Sex Beat. Johnny's got a light in his eyes. Shirley's got a light on her lips. Jake's got a monkey shine on his head, and Deborah Ann's got a tiger in her hips. They can twist, they can turn, they can move and burn. They can throw themselves against the wall, but they creep for what they need, and they explode to the call. Then they move. Sex beat, go. Very stupid, like I told you. Very stupid, like you saw. Very stupid as the simple thought of ever thinking it all. All that mind, all that soul, all that body, all we know, all the things that should have made us whole, all the colorless security was only so we can go and move, sex beat, drop. And yes, you do look cool by the floodlights so blue. You have made my tropical apartment bed your sacrificial pool. My body in the water, my heart in your hands. And this is the way you choose to send me to the judgment land so you can move, sex beat, go. And every day at 3, you throw me down by the Christmas tree. I watch the lights blink on and off while you start your fun with me. I know your reasons, and I know your goals. We can fuck forever, but you'll never get my soul. So you can move, sex beat, go. This next one's called She's Like Heroin to Me. I cannot get a look at it, so I'm burning them on the deal anyway. I see her come down from the top of the stairs. I guess that I'd be cool, but there's a tickle in my veins. I've been a real good tombstone, but now I'm blowing away. She is like an eye blue swimming pool, but she will never know that she is there. We sit together drunk like our fathers used to be. I'm looking up and God is saying, what are you gonna do? I'm looking up and I'm crying. I thought it was up to you. But now she's like heroin to me. She cannot miss a bang. Don't let her take her love to town. They will never fill her heart. She needs a passion like her fathers used to be. I know because I'm like the train shooting down the main line. I know I'm the Indian wind along the telegraph lines. And she's like heroin to me. She cannot miss a bang. I cannot get a look at it. So I'm blowing my trouble to the east. While we sit together sad like our fathers used to be. I know a perfect run by the sleep it puts in my heart. I know my special rider. I could feel her in the dark. She's like heroin to me. She cannot miss a bang. And next one's called Ghost on the Highway. It's cloudy in the west. It looks like rain. My eyes are black holes and I'm burning away. You slaughtered your loving man, killed him in his sleep. The blood and crying of your murder simply stains your sheets. Now you're a ghost on the highway. Your gestures meaningless. You're lost to the living men, trailing souls to the end. You thought winning as a woman meant failing as a friend. It is not an art statement to drown a few passionate men. You made yourself a diamond to blind young man's eyes. You claim because they want your shine, they deserve to walk the line. You're a ghost on the highway. Your gestures meaningless. You're lost forever to the living man, trailing souls to the end. Yes, I would give you my love so my soul would not starve, but it could never move the honest rock of what you really are. You're a ghost on the highway. You're like straw and meaningless. I hate you, but I love you. I'll carry that to the end. If I ever lie with you again, I pray I do not sleep. If I ever close my eyes again, I'd realize what you are to me. You are simply a liar, an animal who bluffs and steals until you become a bigger creature's meal. You're a ghost on the highway. You're trash and meaningless. I hate you, but I love you. I'll carry that to the end. The last one I'm gonna read is called Jack on Fire. I am like Jack. I'm from the southern land. I'm holding your happiness in my hand. The sun behind me is a sexual red, and all your bounty hunting ghosts are dead. I am like Jack, and I'll tell you this, I will be your lover and exorcist. In the stillness of the mosquito sunset, you will make love to me to your very best. Hey, I'm a Jack on fire. Your lips kiss Jack on fire. Way back in the Indian days, nothing could drive the heat away. Drive the search and murder of lost enemies. Drive deep into what is never seen. And like Jack, there's a heat to the fight. Like moth detects a heat to the light. And Jack, I will come that is you, because the heat in you will temporarily do. Hey, I'm Jack on fire. Your lips kiss Jack on fire. When you fall in love with me, we can dig a hole by the willow tree. Then I will fuck you until you die, bury you and kiss this town goodbye. It will be unhappy, it will be sad, but it will be understood that I am bad. So don't you go and lie to me, because every day is judgment day with me. That's it.
Gabe, what was the name of the band again?
Oh, the Gun Club. Yeah,
I've never heard them, but I'm gonna check them out after this for sure.
Yeah, huge influence on like a lot of stuff I do.
Oh man, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Rudy. No, it's all yours, Rudy.
I love that Jack on Fire song. That's on my playlist. I bang that all the time. It's that I haven't really listened to any of their albums, but I really like, and hearing that read makes a lot of the lyrics stand out for how like weirdly like awful and well, not awful in a like lyrical way, but like how like weird and distorted like the
Like
it is. Yeah.
Yeah, he
it-
taps. Jeffrey Lee Pierce taps into some weird, crazy voodoo. Like it's like, yeah, it's like chilling stuff. For a Mexican dude from LA, he's like, yeah, into the kind of Santeria type stuff. Feels like.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check their music out after the show here, or maybe tomorrow, since we usually end pretty late. But I don't know. I'm always struck by like all the new shit that I discover here, not just like new artists who come and read, but like people are always recommending media, and I'm like, oh man, I need to go and I need to check that out right now. But anyway, thank you, Gabe. Thank you, Gabe.
Thank you.
And Keko's up next.
Hi. So since I probably won't be able to come here for the next couple of months, probably until June or July, I decided to read something that you probably won't like, so that you don't miss me too much. So it's basically some poems about flowers, and they're written in seemingly old-fashioned way, actually. And so I just want to ask before I start, are you going to put these MLCs on YouTube again, or because
Yeah.
I'd like to, yeah.
That's going. I mentioned this kind of at the start, but we've been in limbo a little bit because I'm not at home at the moment. I've been for like a month now. I've been down in Virginia, and Rudy has been recording these, so I don't have access to my computer to put them up. I guess there's one recording that's in limbo on my home computer from over a month ago now, but I guess the ones Rudy has, he could potentially upload them to YouTube, and then I could stick those all in a post and put them on the website. And maybe we'll do that soon rather than just waiting until I'm back home, which is kind of up in the air right now to put them all up. So long story short, all these videos we have them, they're not lost, and they will go up on YouTube, and they will go up on Mystery Tourism eventually.
Okay, great. Because sometimes I like to watch the ones that I've been at, because I'm usually it's just too late, so I can't really follow all the writing. So I like to check it out later. And okay, so I'll start. The first one is called Maiden. Young and beautiful, a spare maiden picks her flowers, and the picked stems begin to notice the beauty of yesterday, how it fades, oh it fades, the memory when it glowed in delight superior to the staring sun that does not notice, a spare maiden picking her humble friends, as they tell, or the roots do tell, of the thing that passes beneath their feet, blue and beautiful, seeking the one that passed into tomorrow. Next one doesn't have a title. Flower, be a stone. Stone, take this flowering. The moon's above us. The second one also without a title. I'll move a step from despair. I thought it was a fairy tale. People are cunning creatures. With cunning they carried out victory. A light appears, they save it in a box. Observe it and win. They won the previous one. I'll move once again from despair. The step is lame, the sight is vague. Then a light appears and glows upon the flower. The light leaves, it leaves the flower sated. The flower is heady and it gleams. And there's the flower. That flower, it's pitiful that it is, and that the light must pass over it. And the last one is society quotes, and I know the social present. Over the river stands a forest, while on this side a little flower, tender and winsome as only a flower can be, dyed with light and the bright sky, by the river grows. Mother Fir treats it with an epithet before she nears the river. Father Feather pats it with forte, with sharp eye strikes upon the river. Flower is winsome and beautiful for defying the rain, wind, and bora. Mother Fir leans above the river, and the reflection of her character is beautiful, while Father Feather sees 7 fish and himself as their way to the sky. How can a flower which is winsome not wish its reflection in this river? Over the river stands a forest. I see me, said the flower, to the left tender as a birch, to the right strong as a pine. Down there I'm a weeping willow, good, wise oak, and first and foremost a flower that also gives you its best. That's
Those were beautiful, Echo. I have to ask, how do you decide which poems you're going to read? Because one thing I've noticed is you have a real knack for taking 3 or 4 poems that have a real, like, I don't know, like tonal and thematic consistency to them and packaging them together. I ask this because like you have such broad range as a poet. So it's always fascinating to see which ones you're going to choose because they always fit together and they always feel totally dissimilar to whatever you read the week before, you know?
Yeah, well, you basically answered it. So I just take a couple of poems that I see are kind of connected and read them. So it's always, I mean, it's not always something different, but I just find and group a couple of poems that feel connected.
Yeah, these 4 in particular feel like a real cycle. Like they feel there's a real sense of continuity to them and like themes keep up. Not only like the natural imagery and stuff, but like how you use the flowers like thematically evolves from poem to poem. And even like the way the 2 untitled poems fit after that first poem almost feel like additional like parts of that first poem, if that makes any sense. Like if instead of just having like them be untitled, if you had had a 2 and then a 3 at the top, I would have fully believed that they were a continuation of the first. Anyway, these are really gorgeously written poems, Gecko, and yeah.
Yeah, thanks. It's, I mean, you're right. It's a theme that I enjoyed. I don't know. I was writing about it, let's say, 7 or 8 years ago, and some of these poems are older and translated. Some are in English, and it's a theme that recurrent for me. I always get back to it because I always wanted to write some seemingly stereotypical, or how do you say that? I'm not sure. Stereotypical.
Maybe classical.
Sorry. No, it's like a stereotype kind of poems. Like I wanted to use something that's been really kind of overused and abused, and write something that I don't know, that I feel
that transcends that kind of.
Yeah.
And I think you accomplished that here, right? Like you've crafted multiple poems about like natural landscapes and flowers that don't feel like somebody like imitating Shakespeare's famous like sonnet, right?
Yeah.
That captures the experience of like actually going out in nature and I don't know, and having an experience, right, of going out there and observing the natural world around you and having something profound happen, as opposed to like reading some poems about nature and having something profound happen there on the page, right? And then trying to replicate it. But anyway, thank you very much, Keko. And hopefully you won't be scarce for too long. I saw your tweets and I know that you're working nights, or I guess maybe not nights. What time is there? Early morning?
Now it's 3:40 here, and I usually have to wake up at 5:30. So.
Oh my God. Okay.
Oh damn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this Saturday I'm not working, but most of the Saturdays I will, and it's a different biorhythm, and it's I had to sleep, but today a couple of hours, so I could make it.
Now, are you actually exhuming bodies? Is that real?
Yeah, it's medieval. It's actually it's interesting. It's inside the cathedral, so it's a medieval graveyard and interesting stuff. Yeah, digging out bones.
Now, if not for the fact that you have to get up 5:30 in the morning, that would be my dream job.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Mine too.
we should all get into the exhuming business. That's kind of, in the same lane as what we're doing on the internet already, I would say.
Yeah, no, it's a natural continuation of misery tourism. Anyway, Keko, thanks so much. Good, glad you don't have to work tomorrow, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Forrest is up next.
Hey, so this is actually, I'm gonna read something really short, which was really stupid. It was kind of stupid. Actually, you know what? This thing I'm gonna read, this guy Frankie from Queens has been around in my life for like 10 years. He applied to a job at the Village Voice. I think it's how Frankie came about. But this is very short. I might turn it to a story one day. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, perfectly.
You can, okay.
Yep, we hear
Yeah.
you.
But actually, so what this actually is something kind of serious and boring, and I'm sorry about this, but I have to work through this thing. I was burdened a number of years ago with some documents that William Burroughs exchanged with a psychoanalyst. I guess, like, I don't know if anybody likes Burroughs or what I do. And I read all the stuff. I wouldn't say he's my favorite novelist, but he's probably like the American novelist I studied the most. Can you still see me? Because now I can't see you guys.
Yeah, we can see you.
All
We
right.
can see most of you. That's better.
All right. Let me see if I can fix this. Well, let me see. So the letters exchanged between Burroughs and the analyst for a long time. You're not supposed to see these. I just put them on the internet. Nobody's supposed to know them because it's like against the ethical rules of the APA. I hope this isn't boring anyone too much, because I hope there's somebody that wants to read them. I'm going to publish something with somebody who's kind of legitimate, or like, he's got some authority. He's got to go through the proper sources to get them published or whatever. But I wrote something like 6 months ago when I was trying to do this for like 10 years, that just became all about me. And when I read this article in the Times the other day, where have all the artist addicts gone? I decided that I should respond to it, or I felt like, well, he fucked up Burroughs for one. But yeah, I wanted to say something about that. So I'm just trying to get on the right desktop right now to get the link, and then I'll just read this thing about Frankie and I'll send the link if that works. And shit. 1 second. I'm sorry. So here's the Burroughs thing, right, guys? And so that stuff's illegal. I'm going to take it down in just a couple of days. And unless anyone wants to read it, then they can let me know. I don't know if anybody wants. It's got stuff like his scribbles from narcoanalysis. The best line in it, I'd say, is, Dear Dr. Wahlberg, I guess you haven't heard the news in the New York papers. I shot and killed my wife by accident, of course. So there's like these things in here that you're not supposed to see. And if you have any fascination with Burroughs, I'd recommend checking it out. If you want me to leave it up for more than 2 days, then let me know. But this is Frankie from Queens, and he's just the bio I wrote for this Substack. That's just an ephemeral thing. Okay. So let me get Frankie. And so this is what I wrote for my bio, but there was a very small character limit. I don't feel I am long-winded. However, I do feel it is important to represent who I am in some way. Thank you. Hello, I am Frankie Mulligan of Rego Park, Queens. I was born in the dumpster outside of the New York Post. The previous statement is in fact hyperbole, and therefore a small example of my humor, which some people do in fact enjoy. The truth is, I grew up down the street from where the New York Post saw misprinted copies of their newspapers before destroying them. Since I can remember, I've wanted to be a copy editor, writing headlines in the offices of the Post. I am a journalist, and although I often get compliments regarding the wit and complexity of my headlines, the tabloids I wrote for are much more small time. I primarily write about community board meetings, the good people of Rego Park, car accidents, and murder. I am terrible at taking photographs, so please, if you wish to hire me, hire a professional photographer. I suppose the most important thing you should know about my personal life is that I have a retarded brother. Excuse me, intellectually disabled for most. However, he prefers to be called retarded. We both collect dolls. Although we share this hobby, his dolls are disgusting, covered with all the filth that comes out of his large and restless body. My dolls are pristine and beautiful. And one day, I hope a woman will see them and wish to share my beautiful collection with me and perhaps help it grow. Ever since my mother died, I spent a good deal of time taking care of my brother, which can be trying at times, since he is very strong, very stupid, and not at all politically correct. He also has something strange about public nudity and the dolls, and because of this, we have been fined many times by the New York City Police Department. Neither my health nor my own clean legal record are currently in jeopardy. Nevertheless, we could certainly use any financial assistance with these fines if you happen to like the reporting I will be doing here on Substack. Thank you for your time and attention. 2 of the newspapers I was writing for previously just moved all of their publishing onto Facebook, and they no longer pay their reporters. Even if I can't supplement my income here on Substack, at least I can feel I am fulfilling a civic duty. By the way, I am Catholic, so God bless. P.S. After writing this, I must say I prefer newsprint to this publishing format. I do miss my old editor at the Courier, Catherine. Bless her heart, may she rest in peace. I fear my grammar will not be optimal without her guidance. If you cannot already tell, I am used to things being not quite the way I would like them to be. And since I know many writers using the space, I will be jumping headlong in with this character bio, which does not come anywhere near to representing the writer behind it, who is more like my brother, and who will likely do things the police and the good people of Rego Park, Queens may not like. Then again, if one person likes a creative endeavor, another person enough to create it, you should assume there is at least one other person out there in Queens who will like it too. Nevertheless, if you happen to know who this writer person is, it is really none of your business. Again, God bless. That's it.
Forrest, I want to see Frankie Mulligan write a piece for The Last Estate. I love the character that you crafted here. As always, like you're the master of creating these like silly, wonderfully like deranged, unreliable narrators. And after the line, something strange about public nudity in the dolls, like that bit is really good. And all of the like really wonderfully weird character development that you're doing here. Born in the dumpster outside of the New York Post. There are so many just wonderful, like wonderfully sick, weird lines here for us. But like I said, Frankie Mulligan in The Last Estate when?
All right, you want Frankie? I mean, I was gonna pitch you guys on like some serious thing about this, about the. Well, you know, actually, Frankie is also an art, and he also is an art writer. But
We'll pitch a serious thing too. I've heard about that pitch, and I'm enthusiastic to see where that one goes.
I could be Frankie. I did write for the Canarsie Courier for like 5 years. I mean, like I'm not Frankie. All right, you guys. Okay. So, but I appreciate that. Yeah.
No, thank you so much, Forrest.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Let me know. Please let me know about the borough scene because I'm gonna rip it down. It's completely illegal. My friends are gonna kill me. You know, and it is fun. It is fun.
Okay. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of people on Twitter expressing like dismay about that, the Where Have All the Addict Artists Gone article. I didn't read it, probably because of the fucking paywall, but I don't know. I just think that like, as someone who knows a lot of authors and artists who have struggled with substance addiction, I don't know. It seems crass, right? It seems weird.
Yeah, I mean, like everybody I talked to hated it. Yeah, I was personally hurt. I think I was crying when I got done with it. And you know, like, what do you want to say? Like, oh yeah, here we are, but that's not even it. You don't get it. He got the fact checking was terrible. The thing about Burroughs is that's fascinating about the piece that I put up is that he wanted to be a doctor before he was a novelist, and all the time he's writing towards a cure. He's always writing towards a cure,
right?
You know, and
that's
like this,
true. So many like great authors who struggle with substance addiction. I'm thinking of like one of my personal favorites, John Berryman.
Yeah.
Right? And one of the saddest things about John Berryman is that he really thought close to the end that he had this, like, he basically had like a religious experience, like a conversion experience. And he was convinced that like God had gotten him clean, right? And that shit was behind him. And then, you know, a few months later, he relapses and he throws himself off a bridge. And I don't think like people who romanticize that shit, and this is like, as someone who's like published a ton of pieces that are about addiction and shit, I think the people who like romanticize that fucking shit have no clue the like profound psychological struggle that even like fucking Bukowski, who's put up on a pedestal as being like the, like, you know, the functioning alcoholic author who in some ways is like glamorize this shit. If you read Bukowski, he's not. This shit is sad. Like he makes every drink he fucking takes sound like it's bringing him one step closer to death and despair. You know, I don't know. Anyway, thank you, Forrest. Okay. It was a great piece, and I'm sorry I went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but
I'll message you with the pitch ASAP.
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely do. I want to check here to see if Blick has materialized yet, because I don't want to leave him on the outside in. He hasn't sent a DM to the Twitter or anything, has he, Rudy?
Not that I've seen, no.
Okay, because I know he's done that sometimes when he got locked out, but maybe he's just not feeling well today or something. So with that in mind, Jesse's up next.
Yeah, I said I wasn't going to read earlier, but I changed my mind. I'm going to read a thing that I put up on my Substack a while ago, but then I took it down and I tried to submit it places that Submit it places that will take things that have already been published, which is its own, subcategory of stuff. This is called Don't Use the P Word, or Don't Say the P Word. Recall the Pakistani student at grad school who tested your belief by giving you a bag of Skittles which contained pork products, gelatin. If you are a devout Muslim, you will not eat them. Remember the philosophy grad student from Turkey whose office you went to, and you talked about Badiou, and his wife came and looked at him with concern because she didn't know who you were. Were you dangerous? Were you some agent? Or did you just think she thought you were dangerous because it fit the movie in your head? Remember the Dutch student who was so hot, who thought you were Jewish as she was in the modern standard Arabic class. It was full, but she sat next to you and flirted. And when the professor asked anybody if they were parents, because he wanted to have a conversation in Arabic with them, you whispered to the Dutch woman, "He's about to blow up my spot." And she went, "What?" and thought someone was going to set off a bomb. She didn't get the slang. Traumatized. No, he just wanted to ask you about your kid. How many months old was she? Hamastashar, you said. I have a little girl who's 15 months old. But in Arabic. What were you doing? What were you doing learning Arabic? You thought you were going to join the CIA. Your wife let you have that fantasy like wives let their husbands have fantasies about being guitarists in punk bands. Man boys with fantasies until they see you getting to be too much of a punk, then they bring down reality. How are you going to go work for the government when you have a wife and child? Also, they don't hire people with mental health issues. Your wife's father had worked for TRW in California, which made satellites for the CIA during the Cold War. He held top secret clearances, including a Q clearance, which is the highest clearance for the Department of Energy in the US government. Not sure what satellites had to do with nuclear weapons, but there it was, she said. Your brother-in-law said, that's all bullshit. If you have security clearances, you don't go around telling people you have them. Your brother-in-law probably has some kind of knowledge of that. He worked for an avionics firm that had dealings with the Syrian military long before the Iraq War. Anyway, your wife killed your spy dreams. You were worked up. Every day in the New York Times, there was at least one story about how the US government didn't have enough foreign language speakers, people who could read Arabic, translate conversations. They were desperate. You thought you could get a job if you got an Arabic degree. You thought you could help somehow. You were smart. You were like one of the best in the class at the university. The professor dropped hints about job openings working for places like the NSA. You went to office hours and dropped even heavier hints that you were interested in getting the secret nod for intelligence work, but you didn't say it out loud. You have a crazy memory about somebody calling you on your cell phone and telling you to meet them somewhere obscure in Binghamton if you're interested in a job. And you thought about it, but were too chicken. The window closed. Then you have to ask yourself, did I even have a cell phone back then? It all gets hazy. Started noticing people following you on campus. Joggers would appear whenever you walked across the quad, joggers that didn't look like students. You were put into an advanced Persian class full of second-generation Persian kids from Long Island. It was taught by a guy from Iran who had been a dissident journalist in Tehran and had been locked up by the government for political agitation in his writing. The kids were all monarchists. They wanted the Shah back, fuck the mullahs. The Iranian professor had no love for the revolutionaries, but schooled the Persian kids about how their monarchist exile sympathies were wrong. You got good at dodging into buildings and changing your route to throw out people following you. You checked out a ton of books from the massive university library, read voraciously, photocopied whole books. But they didn't have one book, Anti-Tank Warfare by Buryukov and Melnikov, in English. Although their computer card catalog said they had it, it was reshelved or missing. You thought it was some kind of Patriot Act thing, withholding dangerous books at university libraries. At a used bookstore, you had earlier bought an Arabic translation of the book, originally in Russian, that had been put into Arabic to give to Syria in the 1970s as part of some Russian-Syrian anti-Israel alliance. You wanted the English copy to help with translation. You tried to translate some of the book, but it was too hard. You were not diagnosed with bipolar disorder yet. You were manically reading about black propaganda and disinformation and forgeries and deluding yourself. Espionage, foreign policy, war, terrorism were all in the air. Students muttered to each other about the latest news about bombings. Confusing right-wing yet anti-Bush PSYOP provocateurs draped in swastikas came to campus to test free speech, quickly surrounded by outraged students who were mainly Jewish, screaming that Bush is a friend to Israel. Binghamton University had a large population of Jewish kids from downstate, and it was nicknamed Tel Aviv West. You waited in a long line to see Noam Chomsky speak in a massive auditorium. You were sure people were in the crowd taking photos of you all. You were in nosebleed seats while tiny Chomsky on the stage told the audience you were all going to die in a nuclear war. You couldn't come right out and say you wanted to join the CIA. You just talked about it with your wife, who patiently tried to talk you down out of the balloon ride. Midlife crisis, delusions of grandeur, thinking you're in a Le Carre novel. Cars with Virginia and Maryland license plates started following you, not just around the city with the university, but the city you lived in. You became an expert at analyzing the license plates moving around you in traffic, seeing through the numbers to the official government status of the vehicle. The gasoline bill of the people who had you under surveillance must have been behemoth. You were trailed in Binghamton by white vans with decals on the side advertising security solutions for banks, cameras, locks, metal detectors. You started telling your wife you thought people were breaking into your home and putting microphones in your house, FBI agents, because they didn't know what you were doing. You were trying to think of ways to communicate to them that you were on their side, sending signals by checking certain books out of the library, which would convey your motives to the people watching you. You were just really curious, but no threat. That was in the news too, Americans being surveilled, FISA courts. All a crazy person needs to do is read the news and they get ideas. In olden times, pre-technology, they thought God was talking to them, angels, demons. Then someone started inventing technology, electronics, radios. So the delusions went to radio waves. Crazy people thought they were getting messages over the radio and TV and their feelings. So when the world goes to war, in a war on terrorism with the internet and cell phones and spy agencies, why wouldn't it leap to that? Why wouldn't the crazy man start thinking in those terms? All the stories in the newspaper telling you something, reading between the lines, you mow the lawn, your job at the hotel where you work when you're not driving 90 minutes to take Arabic classes, you start thinking you see things about the groups that come to the hotel for meetings and conferences. Some of them are who they say they are. Some are organizations under some kind of cover. You start keeping their garbage when their conferences are over, binders, folders of paper. Some of them could have uses. Some of the litter is about the FBI. When you were a boy, you had this thing, this kind of madness where you would pick up any piece of trash on the sidewalk if it had writing on it. You had to need to read everything. You thought there was some message in everything. At one time, you believed that the text on people's t-shirts around town gave secret codes indicating that you were already in some afterlife. You can't explain it. Somebody drove by in a Dodge Ram truck, and the stylized brake lights, which were shaped into a ram's horns, had significance. Horned animal, horned god, devil, hell. Everyone was looking at you. Everybody had something to tell you, but using signs and symbols. You had to decode everything the universe was telling you. Ideas of reference, a therapist later called it. The women who break into laughter when they pass you on the sidewalk may not be laughing at you, but you can never listen close enough to what was said before the laughter to tell. So you didn't join the CIA, but you joined the club of men who really wanted to before reality slammed their fingers in the door and told them no. And you resented your wife for it. You didn't have any guy friends to hang out with and talk macho fantasy with and do war trivia with, besting each other with secret knowledge of world history and conflict. You were a smart liberal twisted into a national security hawk by post 9/11 hysteria. You wanted to help and put your talents to use. Now you have bookshelves full of spy nonfiction, books about foreign languages, country studies, cryptography, history. The buzz had faded a lot. You got medicated. Your delusions shuffled through various disguises. The paranoia about the government spying on you goes away, bubbles back up to the surface as paranoia about God, death, the afterlife, religions, and on and on.
Jesse, this is so good. Jesse, did you ever watch the Showtime series Homeland?
No, I didn't, but I knew about it. I heard about it.
Well, you shouldn't, because it sucked, even though like got like real critical acclaim. But this is what I wanted Homeland to be. This is the kind of like real deep dive into like where like national security paranoia meets like, you know, mental health crisis paranoia that I was hoping that series would be. Like, or like obviously something like The Crying of Lot 49 or something, you know, like that point, that like real clear point of intersection between like the shit they tell you to be paranoid about on the news, as someone who like grew up in the post 9/11 era too, or well, didn't grow up, but like came of age, I guess you could say, in the post 9/11 era too. And like the intersection between that kind of paranoia and like, no, you're just fucking nuts paranoia, right? And you walk that line in this piece so elegantly and eloquently, right? That in the ending there, like that sense of like the loss of a dream and like the kind of like paranoias that set in with old age and with disillusionment, the way that like political paranoia gets replaced by like religious paranoia is something like, even from my own life, that I recognize, you know, that like, I don't know, it's a really psychologically deft. It's a really well, it's got depth too, but it's a really psychologically powerful and effective piece, what I'm trying to say, Jesse, and I really enjoyed it.
Thanks a lot.
Oh, and you published this on your Substack, then unpublished it, and you're paying for it. You know, you don't have to tell, I shouldn't say this, but you don't have to, if it's been pulled, you don't have to tell publications that it's
I
been,
know, I guess you're right.
published before. That they won't look, and they're definitely not going to find it if it was on a private Substack and then you unpublished it.
Well, this is just more paranoia, as we're talking about, you know. Now it's editors, it's not like somebody in some office someplace, you know.
Right.
Just being a paranoid person is it never goes away, and it just changes shape into other things, you know.
Right, absolutely.
A lot of shit about like first publication rights is like really like a holdover from snail mail days too, right? It's like places trying to make sure that they don't publish something that another place is planning to publish that there's no way for them to know about, you know? Like, I don't know. I feel like, especially if it's a previous self-pub, like most editors, any editor that you want to publish with isn't going to give a shit, you know?
Right.
And somebody will want to publish that piece. It's really fucking good.
I've got this idea, this like guilty conscience telling on myself, not wanting to deceive people, you know. It's my personal problem, but
no, I've got that too, Jesse, in that like I always have the sense that like people can see my ulterior motives if I have them at all times. And if I'm being even like a little bit disingenuous or dishonest, I feel like I have to apologize and couch it in like justifications and rationalizations, when like the reality is that most people fucking lie all the time. Right? But no, Jesse, that's a fantastic piece. And whether you decide to be honest about the fact that it was previously briefly published or not, I'm confident you can find a home for it, you know? Even if that home is eventually Misery Tourism. I don't want to pull you in that direction too hard, but yeah. And to just quickly talk about what Carter said, I've gone off on tirades about this before, but I think that most of the editors, especially of like short story mags and stuff, who now today obsess over getting first publication rights, are living in some like deep bygone era, especially if you mostly publish online. What's really important isn't whether you publish it first, it's whether you would publish it adjacent to other good shit, right? Because people don't go to publications now looking for a specific piece. They go to publications because they've developed a sense of community or shared identity with that publication, or because they know that publication is where you go to find this kind of shit that I'm into. And it doesn't matter, readers don't give a shit if something's appeared elsewhere before. I mean, we've had times where someone will like send the same piece to us and to Expat, and then we'll both accept it, and they won't like they won't like email one of us and say, hey, by the way, it's been like accepted by the other guys. And like Expat and us will end up running like literally the same piece by the same author in the same fucking week. And I've never had anyone say, hey, didn't Expat just publish that?
I think next time that happens, there needs to be a gladiatorial fight between like William and Manuel. And I think it should be to the death, depending on how good the piece is.
Or a chess match.
Yeah, chess would do the trick too, for
Manuel's
sure.
intense about chess, man.
I think Manuel would win either way, battle to the death or chess, because I'm no good at chess, and I definitely don't have any martial skills.
Isn't Josh Sherman like really into chess? You could like name him your champion.
I was about to say.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Demand the king's justice. Send him in.
I mean, I'm not good in a fight, honestly.
Anyway, thank you, Jesse. Thank you, everyone. Rudy's up next. Oh, actually, last call for Blick here, because I want to give him a chance. I don't know. I haven't let anyone new in, so I don't know why I imagined that Blick has somehow teleported in here. But anyway, Rudy, it's all yours.
All right, so I'm going to read a piece really quick here. Oh, you already linked it. Okay, never mind. So this is called Win Phone 13. It's a 200-ish word RPG about grief and such. Your departed relatives are all influencers in a parallel reality. Your dreams about them are selfies they've taken on the newest Win Phone model, which is for some reason always the 13, with Win Phone proprietary psychodynamic filters applied. This is why so many dreams occupy mental space that is socially, logically, and physically uncanny. Gather 3 to 5 mementos from a deceased relative. It's possible, if possible, obtain some of their clothes. Signature accessories like hats, glasses, earrings will do nicely, and wear them. Grab your phone and put it in selfie mode. Focus on one particular mannerism of your departed loved one and imitate it while staring at yourself. Imagine a dream you've had that featured the loved one. Recall the dream's physical details, prominent objects, ambient lighting, smells, temperature. Move to a place containing some of those things if you can. Next, allow yourself to get lost in the incommunicable vibes your brain intones while thinking of the dream. Wallow. Now your phone is a Win Phone Galaxy, a modest entry-level model, decidedly not the 13. You're connected with your loved one in a haze of chemical and wireless signals. Try to speak as to them. Try to listen, talk simultaneously, or just watch silently. Disconnect when ready.
Goddamn, man. You packed a lot of power into a very short piece here. You showed this to me before, and I loved it then, and I still love it now. This is such, I don't know, this is such an effective game about grief. I know you've been doing, you've been kind of doubling back to do the like short, kind of like, I don't know, like twisted Studio Ghibli style games that you were making a couple of years ago. And this is a really good example of that. And I love the end. I mean, that last the last paragraph there really gets at like the impossibility of like making sense of grief, right? Like the impossibility of like unwinding that in a way that like actually provides any kind of real catharsis, or the inability to like be like, oh yeah, this is what the dead would want from me. This is what the dead would want to say from me. When in reality, like memory is just like this haze of that's all noise, no signal, right? And this is a really, I think, powerful example of that. And grieving, like, is a major theme tonight, I think. We've had at least 2 or 3 other pieces prior to this one about, like, dealing with the loss of a loved one or the loss of a family member. So,
Yeah.
It's good, man. It's good shit.
Cool. Yeah, well, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good on our 10th anniversary to see someone read a fucking game, since that's where we started out. Yeah, so thank you, man. So we don't have Blick, do we? No Blick here. So I don't really like to read very much, but I feel like I should read tonight, since I said, like before, the Misery Tourism is turns 10 today. So what I originally thought I might do is read one of the first RPGs that I actually published on the site. Unfortunately, I couldn't. I screwed myself because we took all of that first batch of 8 RPGs, 4 of mine, 4 of Rudy's, we took off the website when we published the Misery Index, when we put them together and did that Kickstarter and published that print collection of our games. And I'm in Virginia, far away from the 50 copies of that book that I still have in a box somewhere. So, and I don't know, PDFs are a pain in the ass to read on the netbook, yada, yada, yada. So instead of reading that, I thought I'd read 3 of my personal favorite pieces that I've published on Misery Tourism that I've written myself. So I'm going to be kind of self-indulgent tonight. All 3 of these pieces I've read in the past, so that's doubly self-indulgent, and I apologize. But I thought, since we publish a mix of games and poetry and fiction, I thought I'd read 1 game, 1 poem, and 1 piece of flash fiction. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to read the game first. Sorry. This game is called Dry Fire, and it was actually created to be submitted for one of those itch.io jams. It was the Sad Mecha Game Jam, and it's exactly what it sounded like emo mecha games or emo mech games. And I made this game and I submitted it, and it was withdrawn. It was banned from
banned, yeah. Yeah.
Out of fear that someone might actually attempt to play it, which fair enough. Anyway,
not really though. I mean, yeah.
Not really, but what anyway, it's called Dry Fire, a game of piloted robots. What you need to play: 3 to 6 siblings between the ages of 4 and 12 who have recently experienced a family tragedy. An empty living room. An urn containing the ashes of your father. The gun your father shot himself with, unloaded. Play. Move the coffee table to the middle of the living room if it's not already there. Put Dad's urn and the gun on the coffee table. Everyone sprints to a different corner of the room, about equally far away from the table, and stands there. Count down from 10 together aloud. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. When the countdown ends, make a mad run for the coffee table and try to grab the gun. Don't be timid. Fight for it if you have to. Keep at it until only one player has their hand on the gun. The player holding the gun is the mech pilot. They set the scene, tell the other players what's going on, why you're about to fight. The story can be nearly anything you can imagine, but it must include giant monsters and one big awesome robot. Oh, and don't talk forever, Christ. All the other players are kaiju. Kaiju cannot speak, but they can scream. The kaiju want to kill the mech pilot. Don't think too much about why. The kaiju chase the mech pilot around the living room, trying to tackle him. The mech pilot fights back with his gun. Roughhouse, make noise, point the gun at each other, make a loud bang when you pull the trigger. If a kaiju manages to wrestle the gun away from the mech pilot, they become the pilot, and the pilot becomes a kaiju. Play continues as before. At any time, one of the kaiju may kneel behind Dad's urn and speak in the deepest voice they can manage. They're now the commander. They have the power to give the mech pilot orders, and the pilot should try to follow them. Feel free to disobey the commander a little, though, or at least try to find ways to turn his directions upside down. The game continues until Mom catches you. Remember where you left off. Try to pick up the story the next time you're alone. Imagine each game is an episode of a sweet TV show. All of these episodes together form the campaign. The campaign ends when one of the players figures out how to load the gun. Okay, that's the end of that one. This next one is a poem. I'll put it in the chat. This one is a little dated. I wrote this one back in early 2019. You might remember there was a big to-do on the news when NASA finally, basically when the Opportunity rover finally died, when it lost power and NASA had to kind of discontinue the Opportunity mission, which was basically they sent a rover to Mars and it managed to continue gathering and sending data for like 10 years more than they expected it to. Anyway, so people were on the news really like heavily like romanticizing the plight of this piece of space trash. So I wrote a poem about it. Also, I was really sad when I wrote this. So the poem is called On the Loss of Opportunity. The first section is called We Must Resist the Urge to Anthropomorphize the Suffering of Robots. Regarding its time on Mars, here is what we can say without resorting to sentimentality. To begin, we have the impact site, Endurance, a crater in an otherwise flat, bare plain. One of its first acts was a thorough examination of its discarded heat shield, no longer a protective barrier against its environment. Afterward, it turned south and started in the direction of Marathon. Over the course of its 5,352 sols of life, it traveled a total of 28 miles, not quite half the distance from Flint to Detroit, averaging nearly 28 feet per day. The observations it gathered on rocks and the prospect of water, now gone, are invaluable. It also took a number of photographs of its surroundings and at least one self-portrait. It spent one 6-week period in the spring immobilized in a sand dune, and there was a high probability that it would never move again. Spirit failed under similar circumstances, emptying its battery in a fruitless attempt to extricate itself from soft soil. But Opportunity was not exhausted then. Eventually, its memory began to fail, and it was afflicted with amnesia. Concessions were made to its new limitations, and the mission continued. It ended its journey sightless and enervated on the cusp of endeavor. Okay, the second part of this poem is called Dr. Carl Tanzler was ahead of his time. Fuck your cynicism, you tell me. We'll go up there and bring her home someday. And I believe you. Mere decades from now, a Chinese plutocrat, as sentimental as he is debauched, will fund a rescue operation at hilarious expense. I am thinking of Wally, he tells the craftsman hired to restore the rover, who holds open a book advertising dozens of different varieties of plastic googly eyes. It was the first American film I saw as a child, and it impacted me. Of course, the artist tells his patron, and there's one final instruction: the installation of a discrete chute 3 centimeters in diameter with a trap door. Okay. The final section of this poem is called "My Battery is Low and It's Getting Dark," which is a romanticized version of the last message sent by the Opportunity rover. Maybe I do empathize with it, with my years spent in careful analysis of the ground immediately adjacent to my feet. Maybe I do envy it, for at least it had the chance to accomplish absolutely nothing notable in space. Maybe I do admire it for making the most of a vast, lifeless world in extremely limited means. But in the end, entropy is still entropy and dust is still dust, and there are no exceptions to universal laws, even for the most ambitious robots. So maybe I do resent him, far from the banality of Earth, buried beneath dunes that are not as red as we imagine them. Okay, and then this last piece is a piece of, I hope I sent that last one to the chat. Yeah, I think I did. This last piece is a flash fiction piece loosely based on the Divine Comedy. It's called The Comedy Beyond Hope, with apologies to Dante Alighieri, the saints, the penitent, and all of the damned. Part 1. Dante dreams of a return to hell. Somewhere in his home in Florence, there is a scrap of paper. On the paper is a poem he wrote years ago before his exile. He searches for it now on his hands and knees in the mud, while the gluttons lie at his feet, blind. All he finds are the empty hands of man, who are stacked atop each other endlessly beneath him, mixed with the sludge. He wonders if the whole of hell is made of groping dead men, all the way to the car. Maybe he had imagined all the circles. He tries to recall Satan's face, but he cannot. He sees 3 mouths, but they are empty. He goes to the river to wash the dirt from his hands. The waters of the Styx are clean, and no men drown there. Beatrice stands at the opposite shore, undressing. He walks across the surface of the water, and when he reaches her, she is putting back on her clothes. She asks him to follow her, but they lose each other in the wood. In frustration, he tears at the bark of the tree beside him, and its sap oozes white. The tree does not moan. It has no story to tell him. I should return to the vestibule, he thinks. Virgil must be waiting for me there. He walks for hours, but never finds Limbo again. The second part is called A Celebrated Revolutionary Seeks Absolution in Purgatory. Every night, the streets fill with young men and young women. He can hear the chanted slogans as he lies uncomfortably on his mattress. A spring digs at the musket ball that sits under the skin at the small of his back. He can smell the smoke through the open window, and occasionally a bit of ash will settle on his tongue. In a dream, he sees his mother, fresh from church with a gray cross on her forehead, and she offers him a glass of water that is too cold for him to swallow. In the morning, he stands in front of the soap-stained bathroom mirror and counts the bullet wounds in his chest as he buttons his shirt. The rope burns are still on his wrists. He drives to the bodega that he has no memory of buying and greets his wife, who he has no memory of marrying. All morning, he sweeps the broken glass from the floor. His wife is on the phone with the insurance company. She hangs up, smiling. Don't worry, she tells him. They will pay for everything. The third and final part is called The Neurotic Passes an Eternity in Heaven. When he was a child, his mother kept an Afghan at the foot of her bed. Unfolded, it became immense, much larger than the bed, larger perhaps than the bedroom. He would open it and drape it across the room, suspending it from bedposts and curtain rods, even from the unused clothes hangers in the small closet beside the bureau. In his imagination, it was a massive pastel spider web. Lying beneath it in the mid-afternoon, he would feel a rare sense of contentment that was nothing like the terror that would consume him. The terror that would consume him each night when he was alone in his room, clinging desperately to wakefulness, thinking about death and how similar it must be to sleep. His fear could not reach him there, in that space, in that moment. It was stuck like a fly to the outside of the web, squirming impotently. He could not even hear its buzz. He was safe. If I died right now, he would think, that would be fine. I could die and it would be okay. And that is how you can find him now, here in paradise, in repose on his back with nothing to see above him, always awake, at peace with a death that will never come. Okay, that's it, guys. I'm done. I think we're done for the night. I will leave the I'll leave the chat up. I'll leave the Zoom call up, even though we don't have Josh to entertain us tonight. I'm sure we'll find something to say. Yeah. Anyway, that's been Misery Loves Company. First of all, oh, Rudy, sorry.
To say with the mech piece there, do you remember what they said when they removed that?
I don't remember exactly what they said. I remember someone intimated that maybe someone would attempt to play the game and shoot themselves or something, which kind of like, this is clearly an unplayable game. If it's played as directed, like you have to be a bunch of like children who have been left alone with the unloaded gun that your dad used to kill himself. If you've been left in that situation by fate or circumstance, I really don't feel responsible for it. Yeah, sorry, Rudy.
Also, there's a part in there that I didn't realize the many times I read it. It was about the you know, when you talk as the father, basically, you talk as in the deepest voice you can. But I didn't realize that was actually like a reference to you know, these father figures in anime like Gendo or something like that.
Yeah, you know, I remember before I came up with this game, I watch like no anime and I haven't seen any of these mech shows, but I remember having a conversation with you about like the father figure.
Okay, yeah. I was gonna say, have you ever seen Evangelion?
I have not seen Evangelion, but I've had conversations with you about it, and that actually helped inspire the game, actually.
Gotcha, okay.
That weird, like, twisted, forceful, like, pathological father figure shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, because there's other games. There's a game called Bliss Stage, that does something similar with basically authority. The game is about authority abuse and abuse of authority, whatever. But
I've never read Bliss Stage, but I've had a lot of conversations with you about Bliss Stage, and those conversations with you about Bliss Stage, excuse me, contributed to the game, the game, as if like it's meant to be played. But yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say this does it better than Bliss Stage because you actually have the father as a presence that's like seen. Well, it's both seen and not, or heard and not seen, but is also a player literally in the game. So it's weird. It's a weird like liminal thing that's going on there. I like it.
Yeah, dad's playing the game with you, right?
Right, exactly.
And there's something like it. I think what I was trying to get at with that game is like most like sad like mech media that I'm vaguely familiar with and haven't watched seems like it's like about emo kids dealing with their feelings or whatever. And the way that the not that there's anything wrong with that, but the way the contest or the jam or whatever was pitched was very much in that way. And I was like, well, but what is it like? What's the role that games actually play for like people who are struggling with their emotions, right? More often than not, it offers more of a playful escape and an avenue for catharsis and evasion than as a way to deal like directly with your feelings. And I wanted to get something at something that like went for that playfulness of it and the idea as games as an escape or games as a way to refuse to deal with your emotions as opposed to games as a way to directly vent your emotions, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Sorry, Adam. Adam, did you, sorry, I just saw your messages now. Did you have a piece you wanted to read before we closed up shop here?
No, it could be after the shop closes or before.
Okay.
It doesn't need to be on the record.
Gotcha. So in that case, I think we will end it for the night. Thank you to everyone who read. Thank you to everyone who came to this Misery Loves Company. And thank you to everyone who's come to all of the fucking Misery Loves Companies over the course of the last close to 2 years now. And thank you to everyone who's contributed to Misery Tourism over the last decade. Who knows what the next few years will bring, but I really appreciate everyone who's read us, everyone who's submitted, everyone who's published. This has been a good fucking time. Anyway, that's it. I'm getting too sentimental here. Gonna leave this open for a little bit, as I said. If you're watching this on YouTube, it means we finally put all our backlog up on YouTube. We do this every Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific. Anyone is welcome to come and share their work. And yeah, anyone's welcome to come and just hang out. Okay, that's it. Rudy, kill the recording. I'm rambling. Just end this thing, please.